There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It is all or nothing. If transgenderism is true, if men really can become women, then it's true for everybody of all ages. If transgenderism is false, as it is, if men really can't become women, as they cannot, then it's false for everybody too. And if it's false, then we should not indulge it, especially since that indulgence requires taking away the rights and customs of so many people. If it is false, then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level.
I find it interesting how a person who is so absolutely sure that transgenderism is not a real thing, when I believe it actually is. I'm no expert on it, and I'm not trying to virtue signal for transgenderism either. There are clearly issues with the moral panic around transgenderism, I guess you can say nowadays. If I am not mistaken, there is evidence, neurological evidence, that some people really are transgender. It's in the brain. It's like homosexuality. These are not demons possessing people's bodies, by the way. And I bring that up because I find it interesting that someone like Michael Knowles, who is so absolutely sure that transgenderism is not true at all, that he's willing to entertain exorcisms. He's willing to have a Catholic priest on his show talking about a woman running up a wall.
If you start digging into the occult, you're opening a door, and you might not be strong enough to close it. And then you have to call me.
Someone wrote into my show, said, Michael, if you could meet the devil.
Met him twice, personally.
How'd that go?
Not well the first time.
By the way, I grew up Catholic also, but I'm atheist. See, I like to adhere to reality. And I think this is a very big problem with all the problems that we have in society nowadays, at least here in the United States, and when we shouldn't be. I mean, if it weren't for the culture wars, if it weren't for all the politics and all the hot air by people like myself, by the way, I mean, I just have a tiny channel. But I'm one of those mildly narcissistic, attention-seeking egomaniacs that feels the need to shoot his mouth off on social media. But I'm okay with admitting that. You see, I wish more people would. I wish more people would admit to a certain extent, what they're actually doing. They want to be noticed. They want to be validated. They want to be stars. Okay. Now, I don't doubt that someone like Michael Knowles truly believes in the things that he's trying to push, even when they're so absolutely false. Like, for example, with transgenderism, he's wrong. He's factually incorrect that it's not a real thing. And he is very wrong on exorcisms and promoting that. And exorcisms have gotten people killed, by the way. People have died from exorcisms. And it's amazing to me. It's that there are still people who entertain this nonsense. And I grew up Catholic. I am painfully aware of the obviously contradictory statements, beginning with, we're all God's children, but Jesus Christ is his one and only Son. Even in kindergarten, I already knew, because I went to Catholic private school my whole life. I was like, those two statements cannot be true at the same time. And of course, whenever I would ask these things, I was always told, you're asking too many questions. You only get 2 or 3. And after that, you're tempting the devil, you know. And just the fact that Jesus Christ is God's only Son, but he's God himself. And I understand why people hold on to religion. I understand why they cling to religion. It's a psychological terror management system of sorts. But it's false, and it is demonstrably false. I mean, just plain and simple, they can't all be true at the same time. That's just to begin with. Just from polytheism to monotheism, those two things can't be true at the same time. And then when you look at the Judeo-Christian monotheism, including Islam, those three, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, those three cannot be true at the same time either. The original ones, the Jewish people, they're still waiting for the Messiah. The Christians, like Michael Knowles, clearly, they are so sure who that Messiah was. And the Muslims are like, oh, no, hold on a second. Ours is the real. I don't even know if they really do consider Muhammad to be a Messiah. But he's the ultimate prophet who flew off into heaven on a winged horse, which have never existed in all of recorded biology. It's just, it's amazing the demonstrably false and just borderline stupid ideas that billions of people still hold. And it's thanks to people like Michael Knowles. And I don't want to disparage the guy. I don't want to have that approach in my videos. I want to get away from being incredibly angry about issues that ultimately end up affecting my life, which is why I also feel the need to shoot my mouth off about these things. But it's frustrating to watch people who can be so absolutely wrong and yet so sure that they're not, have such platforms, have 1 million subscribers, have so many people listening to their bullshit is just too easy a word. Listening to their, and I was going to say disinformation, but I don't doubt that Michael Knowles is so secure in that he's not misinforming people. He really does think that he is informing people, and he's not. You're misinforming people. And in his case, I do think that for certain issues, he's just misinformed. I don't think he's deliberately disinforming people. And there are those who do that. Those are the bad faith activists. Those are the Black Lives Matter founders, for example. There's quite a few things I probably would agree with Michael Knowles on. I also heard him the other day talking about the need for the death penalty, especially when it came to El Salvador and how they're rounding up all the murderous gang members, and how now that they've all been rounded up, the murder rate in El Salvador has dropped by, I think, 57%. So clearly, some of the murderers are in that jail. It seems to be working. I don't know the guy's name, and I'm gonna air that little ignorance out there. I remember seeing his name, but I forgot it. The president, or supposedly the coolest dictator of El Salvador. It's funny because it's not like a Spanish name, and I'm Hispanic, and I look at that name and I'm like, that doesn't look Hispanic. But anyway, the point is, I agree with Michael Knowles on the need for the death penalty. And it's interesting, when it comes to the death penalty and hearing people defend it, like he was trying to defend the death penalty, that how it can deter murder, but we just don't know it yet because it hasn't been really applied, which almost sounds like whenever I hear communists try to say why communism hasn't worked yet. There's a very simple reason why the death penalty does deter murder, because when a person is dead, they can never murder again. It's that simple. Ted Bundy could never murder again because he's dead now. Same thing with John Wayne Gacy and with any other serial killer. Once they're dead, they can't murder again. And another thing that I'm surprised I don't hear more people talking about when it comes to the death penalty, which I don't want to get too sidetracked with this because this is about transgenderism and exorcisms and how people cannot seem to distinguish which one's true and which one's false. But coming back to the death penalty, the other thing I rarely hear anyone talk about in defense of the death penalty are the recidivism rates. The fact that there are more than enough people who will murder again after they're given the second chance. And there's even been people who've murdered a third time, which I'm going to include that. I'm doing this video off the cuff, but ironically enough, the person that I have in mind from the news story that actually murdered a third time, being let out of prison a third time, and they murdered again, was actually a transgender person. So I'm not saying that there aren't problems with transgenderism And I wouldn't doubt that it is some sort of mental illness to a certain degree. I would probably agree with that. There's something very off when your biology is male or female, but you are thinking the opposite. And even if it is a neurological thing, and I'm all for respecting people, but we also need to identify problems. That's how we solve them. Anyway, I hope this all makes sense. I don't want to make this video too long. But it's as frustrating as it is amusing, as it is a little scary to see people like Michael Knowles with quite the platform to be able to not only have, over 1 million subscribers on YouTube, but to be at CPAC, to be there at the forefront of helping decide who are the possible contenders for our presidency, and how sure he is about certain things that are false and other things that are true when they're not, like exorcisms. I'm amazed that we're still at this point in human evolution. We still, so many people are still entertaining these demonstrably false and just downright silly ideas. And a lot of those people are influencing our policies that the rest of us have to live by. And I think that's a real shame. With all that said, if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and check out the links down below for my original art and merchandise. And thanks for watching.